Hello, everyone. A very good evening and welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is a very important one as we all know that, the MSME Bill 2026 has just passed in August, and it is super important and necessary to know what has changed, what exactly is in the amendment, what all we need to know, and हमारे लिए क्या जरूरी है, क्या नहीं, what points should we keep in mind. So we have none other than our expert, Ankita, with us. So Ankita, as we already know her, she has been guiding us since a long time. She is a company secretary and an CMA. She has an experience of over a decade, and she has been working so closely with the MSME since the past 6 years now, and she's the best person to explain us what exactly we must know from this MSME bill that has just passed, what is important, what is not. She's here to explain everything to us in the most simple way so that it's easy for us to understand. So yes, without taking much of her time, I think I'll give it over to you, Ankita. You can take over.
Thank you so much, Ankita. So, a very good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today to discuss something that has a direct bearing on the growth, competitiveness, and financial strength of our MSME sector. The proposed amendments to the MSME framework. So this was introduced in the Rajya Sabha on 28th of July. These amendments were introduced and subsequently passed in the Rajya Sabha on 3rd of August and in the Lok Sabha on the 7th of August. So before starting, we all must understand why these changes are not merely about provisions and sections. They are not making it, rather they are about making it easier for MSMEs to do business, access finance, and grow with confidence. So let us understand what these amendments mean and more importantly, why they are important for MSMEs on the ground level. So let's start. So I have just, taken firstly a brief summary as in what these amendments or what were the amendment in the bill to the MSMED Act 2006. So now the amendment which was introduced in the Rajya Sabha on 28th July read as the first and the foremost amendment was in the section MSME classification. Now we all are aware that the MSME, rather your Udyam classification, is based on the both investment in plant and machinery equipment, and the second criteria was of turnover. Though it was very explicit, but it was again missing in the our MSME Act, which was proposed in the year 2006. The earlier act read only with the provisions that the MSME classification is based on the investment. So now it has explicitly, this amendment in the bill has explicitly said that the classification is based on the both investment in plant and machinery equipment and turnover. And moreover, it has clearly also specified that the costs such as pollution control, R&D, that is your research and development, industrial safety equipment, will be excluded when we are calculating the investment in the plant and machinery. Now, the second and the most important which was proposed in this amendment was the digital MSME registration. If you go through the earlier MSMED Act, the provision was not digital. Though Udyam registration was introduced in the year 2020, rather earlier also we have gone digital, but it was missing in the Act. So now it explicitly mentions a free and a voluntary national digital registration platform is proposed. It has also stated that the state government may also create state level digital platforms for availing state benefits. So we were in that framework where our Udyam registration was no more a physical intervention, rather everything was online. But again, the act was silent on the same. The our MSMED Act, which was originated in the year 2006, was silent on the same. So now this amendment, through amendment in this bill, it has been introduced. Now the third and the most important amendment, rather a game changer, I would say, it is an inclusion of new section also. The bill introduced a new section 15 subsection A, which says mandatory TReDS settlement. Now, what does it mean? It means that every CPSEs, that is Central Public Sector Enterprises, will be required to route settlement of MSME invoices through TReDS. We all know every now and then our government has specified about the TReD registration, but it was always at the discretionary. Now it is a mandatory for every CPSEs to settle their MSME dues through TReDS. So again, a game changer. Now, the most important, I would say, rather a much awaited amendment in the bill is faster MSCFC proceedings. Now, these provisions were already laid under Section 18 of our MSMED Act, but now it says MSCFC faster proceedings, where it has, mentioned the timelines also. Timelines in the sense it is clearly and explicitly mentions that a mediation needs to be completed within 90 days from the first appearance. So for the first hearing, as we go proceed, the mediation needs to be completed within 90 days. This time frame was missing in the earlier bill. Now it also mentions that after failed mediation, arbitration is to be commenced within 30 days. So if my case is lined and my mediation fails, so immediately as my mediation fails, the case needs to be taken for the arbitration within 30 days. So when I'm talking about these provisions were there in earlier bill also, but again, the specific timelines has been introduced through this amendment bill. And the award, most important, the award is to be made within 90 days from the completion of the proceedings. So now to explain it clearer, supposedly I have filed my case through MSCFC, that is MSCFC Samadhan or ODR portal, and my case gets listed. So within of listing it, the council needs to complete within 90 days the mediation process from the first appearance. Mind you, from the first appearance, within 90 days, the mediation needs to be completed. And after the failed mediation, if the case is to go for the arbitration, it has to be commenced within 30 days. And the award, order or decree is to be made within 90 days from the completion of pleadings. So now with this we can conclude that our MSCFC proceedings is no more the open bounded area. Rather, it is now a time bound area. And the fifth one, or rather, I would say the most important one, again, one of the most important one is supplier-based jurisdiction. Now, what does this mean? This means the Facilitation Council having jurisdiction over the supplier's registered address may hear a dispute against a buyer's located anywhere in India. Mind you, my friends, these provisions were there earlier. The supplier-based jurisdiction, the MSCFC was very clear about the jurisdiction, right? No matter if my buyer's registration, that is my Udyam registration, is of Pune, Maharashtra, but my respondent, rather my defaulter party is sitting in Bangalore or sitting in Jharkhand, I can still initiate case against them in the Pune Council. To ease this process, what the introduction has been done here is online mediation and arbitration, which was earlier missing. It was on the voluntary or discretionary on the jurisdiction, council jurisdiction, but now it has been mandated that the online mediation and arbitration needs to be introduced. So the supplier based jurisdiction here means that no matter anywhere in India my supplier is there, I can file a case against them. So now the most important one is again stronger recovery of award. Now what does this mean? Earlier what happened, there supposedly I have a client who has filed a case in the MSCFC council. Okay, so now the pleadings has been done, the hearings has been done, that is mediation hearings has been done, and then accordingly arbitration hearings has been done, and the award is passed. So what was the earlier provision? Once the award was passed, it has to be routed through civil court. Rather, civil proceedings need to be for the execution of the award or the decree. But now, the game changer in this bill is that a mediated settlement or arbitral award may be recovered as arrears of land revenue. So what does this mean? Arrears of land revenue, that I don't need for execution of this award, I don't need to go again to the civil proceedings. It was, I would say it was the main pain point for all of my MSME suppliers. After dealing in with closely with MSMEs for the last 5 to 6 years, I have seen though cases has been, in the favor of MSMEs, but still the execution of that decree or execution of that award was a challenge for many MSE suppliers, because again the same dose was there. You get an award, but how to execute this award or decree? You have an order in your favor that yes, the XYZ party needs to pay you principal along with this interest amount. But again, what if that party is not paying me after getting my award or degree also? So execution part was earlier, in the earlier MSMED Act, the execution part was in the hands of the civil court, right? But now it is no longer there. Rather, the first amendment, I would say, is in section 18A, subsection 1, it is to be recovered as arrears of land revenue. In the later part, I will be explaining what does this mean, arrears of land revenue. And accordingly, the another new section which has been introduced, or rather part of the 18A subsection 2, also states that if a mediated award is recognized as a legally enforceable debt under the IBC Code 2016. So now what does this mean? Legally enforceable debt. Supposedly, I have an award which reads my principal amount of 1 crore rupees along with the interest, applicable interest, and now the final amount which I have to be received is principal plus interest, that is 1 crore 50 lakhs. So again, I can challenge this debt, becomes legally enforceable under the IBC Code 2016. So yes, the recognition of debt is very well explicitly mentioned, but again, it does not classify your debt under financial debt or operational debt. It is your legally enforceable debt. I would say it is a milestone, or rather a milestone change in the amendment in the bill. Now, the seventh most important is like challenge to award. Again, this was again mentioned in the earlier provision. A buyer challenging an award or mediated settlement must deposit 75% of the amount. So this provision was always there in the MSMED Act, that if a buyer wants to challenge an award or my mediated settlement, he or must deposit 75% of the amount. But what is here the game changing thing is where the challenge remains pending for over 6 months. Okay, so where the challenge remains pending for over 6 months, at least 50% of the awarded amount must be released to the MSME supplier from the deposit. So let us understand from the example point of view. Supposedly, I have an award stating that I am entitled to receive 1 crore rupees. Okay, but this award has been challenged by the buyer. So for challenging this amount, what does the buyer need? How much the buyer needs to deposit? It is 75 lakhs, right? 75 lakhs needs to be deposited to challenge this award. Now, what does this provision says? That if the challenge remains pending for over 6 months, so at least 50% of the awarded amount must be released to the MSME supplier from the deposit. So 75 lakhs was deposited. So in this case, at least 50%, but my due was 1 CR. 1 CR was the amount, decree amount. So 50%, 50 lakhs of that amount needs to be released. So again, a big relief for all my MSME friends. Now, more facilitation council. Again, this bill has also introduced the fact, or rather acknowledged the fact, that state governments are required to establish an adequate number of MSCFC to ensure regular meetings. Mind you, my friends, ensure regular meetings and provide suitable infrastructure, digital system, and trained manpower. Though we have n number of cases, this special quasi-judicial body was established only with one sole intent: to hear the cases for all the delayed payments, right? With no benchmark to the amount. So this was enacted, this was introduced, but what was the challenge at the ground level? The challenge at the ground level was, again, all my MSME friends would agree with it also, there was an inadequate number of MSCFC council. And even though if I talk about inadequate number of MSCFC council, there was also no regular hearing. Supposedly, if my case has been filed in the year 2017, I have those examples in my cases. The case has been filed in the year 2017, but still it lies in the MSCFC Council. It is still there. The case is still opened. Still, my MSME friends are waiting for the order or the decree. So, a proper this amendment has been passed to make sure that there is not only an adequate number of MSCFC council, but again there is regular meetings, regular hearings, and suitable infrastructure, digital systems and trained manpower. So with this, I remember there was a ODR, Initiation of Online Dispute Resolution, under the RAMP program of the ministry. So I can see everything is in line. First few things were introduced in the budget, and then how these introduced things can fall in line with this MSMED Act, it has been beautifully picturized. So, first it was like that ODR was facilitated, online dispute resolution, on the last year of MSME Day, right? It was inaugurated by our president only. Now the thing is how to bring in the framework, of that ODR. So first change which I have seen that introduced in the bill was ki no matter wherever your buyers are, no matter, the jurisdiction of the supplier remains intact, but no matter wherever your buyer are, To speed up this process, online proceedings had been initiated. Again, when I talk about this more facilitation council, so everything being online, this will again save time and money. So now, revised MSCFC composition. Again, one of the foremost changes in the amendment, or rather, I would say proposed amendment in the bill, is revised MSCFC composition. Now, each council will have 3 to 5 members, including this is what the composition of the semi-quasi judicial body, that is the MSCFC, looks like. So, it has to be a minimum of 3 to 5 members, including a joint director level officer as chairperson, MSME association representatives, but the game changer here is and at least one member from the legal field. This composition was earlier also in the earlier MSME provision also, but now the crux here is that at least one member needs to be from the legal field. Reporting and penalties. So now what does this mean? Notified public sector entities must report TReDS invoice settlement, right? So it has not only mandated that every CPCs, that is the central public sector enterprises, need to, empower MSME bills through TReD only. Rather, it also entitles under section 22 subsection A that every public sector entities must report TReDS invoice settlements. So then again, how it is dealing with penalties. Now, certain offences are proposed to be decriminalized and replaced with warnings and graded monetary penalties. So earlier it was criminalized offence. Now it has been replaced with warnings and graded monetary penalties with an administrative appeal mechanism. So if I need to talk how this bill has been taken, or how this amendment has been introduced, I would say it has taken from the administrative point to how the delayed payment cases needs to be addressed, and again how this needs to be executed also. Over and over, I would say that a complete picture. So now how does this will be impacting practically? What will be the overall practical impact of this amendment? So firstly, it improves MSME liquidity, the main, or I would say the pain point for every MSMEs. It now addresses the amendments in the bill, addresses the MSME liquidity through compulsory TReDS based settlement by central PSUs, right? And moreover, it also introducing fixed timelines. The earlier provisions were silent on the timelines. So now with this amendment, the introduction in the fixed timelines and online mechanism for faster delayed payment dispute resolution. So I was mentioning before that this ODR by the government has been introduced under the RAMP program, right? Now the last year only it gets inaugurated also, and it gets into system. But now through this amendment in the act, it gets that it is a need of an hour, that online mechanism for faster delayed payment dispute resolution. Now again, as I was saying, केस कर दिया मैंने, but is it like solving my purpose? Supposedly, being an MSME, I have n number of suppliers who has n number of purchasers who has defaulted my invoices, right? So just going and mirroring filing a case, is it solving my purpose? No, it's not, right? Even if I have the order or decree in hand, is it solving my purpose? No, it's not. The earlier provision was really, silent on how to enforce. So with this amendment, we have enforcement through land revenue recovery. So no more your order needs to be go through civil proceedings, right? It has to be mandated through land revenue recovery. And the second and the most important again, IBC recognition and mandatory. Third thing which it has been like enforced is mandatory pre-deposits by buyer. So if your order, if your award is getting challenged or buyers needs to challenge it or buyer is tending to challenge it, he or she by default needs to pre-deposit 75% of the decree amount, right? And again, when I talk about, institutional capacity, which was every now and then we heard, that is the whole process. Earlier, through MSMED Act, when it was introduced, MSME Samadhan was in picture. At every state district level, there was a MSEFC council. But again, what happened? The cases were piling with no solutions, right? So the ODR mechanism was introduced to simplify the work of MSME Samadhan. ODR was introduced. Now with this amendment, what does it say? It says it expands institutional capacity by requiring additional facilitation council and improved infrastructure. So now the bill says that if there is inadequate MSEFCs, you please go on with the additional MSEFCs with improved infrastructure, with all those amenities which can facilitate the council to take the hearings online also. Now, अभी अगर मैं इसको एग्जाम्पल के साथ समझाऊं, कैसे होता था? आज मेरा जुरिस्डिक्शन बीइंग अ सप्लायर, मेरा जो एमएसएमई का रजिस्ट्रेशन है या जो मेरा उद्यम रजिस्ट्रेशन है वो है पुणे का, महाराष्ट्र का, राइट? सो माय एमएसएफसी फैसिलिटेशन काउंसिल विल बी एमएसईएफसी पुणे. बट मेरा जो डिफॉल्टर पार्टी था जिसको मैंने सप्लाई किया था वो बैठा है झारखंड में. So now with the Jharkhand party receives a notice for MSME hearing. So वो वहां से email कर देता है कि it has been like very short notice that I have received for this hearing and it will be really difficult for me to attend this hearing. So now what council used to do earlier? They used to give them a next short hearing date. ठीक है? तो मेरी जो केस एप्लीकेशन जो थी वो अभी बोर्ड पे लगी. आफ्टर अ लॉन्ग वेट ऑफ 6 to 9 months माय केस जस्ट गॉट लिस्टेड इन दी बोर्ड. मेरी पहली हियरिंग थी, बट मेरी पहली हियरिंग इसलिए नहीं हुई क्योंकि मेरा जो बायर था वो अटेंड नहीं कर पाया ये हियरिंग, क्योंकि वो बैठा है झारखंड में, राइट? सो इट वाज अगेन क्रिएटिंग अ प्रेशर कि फाइल तो कर दिया केस बट रिजल्ट कैसे आएगा. एंड दिस वाज नॉट द ओनली वन रीजन व्हिच वाज फेस्ड. सो फॉर दिस टू हैव अ hassle free hearing through amendment in this bill, it has been introduced that you need to take the online hearings. It is proposed because I have also seen there are many cases, rather there were many cases where buyers were pleading it has been really difficult, it will be difficult for me to travel, so can I have the online link? But again, it was not under the ambit, or I would say it was not discretion mandatory for the council, so they would be passing on to the next hearing date. So with this amendment, I think again it will be a relief for all my MSME suppliers. Most importantly, what again a practical impact which we can talk is it moves selected non-compliances. Now what was this non-compliances? I would just explain you. We all know that this MSME or rather जो हमारा उद्यम certificate है वो self declaration basis पे है. There is nothing on record that we need to file, right? सपोजिटली आज मुझे अगर एक जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन सर्टिफिकेट निकालना होता है तो मुझे अपनी सारी चीजें कि मेरा एड्रेस क्या है, मेरे ये केवाईसी क्या है, मुझे अपलोड करना पड़ता है एज एन एडिशनल डॉक्यूमेंट। बट जब मैं उद्यम रजिस्ट्रेशन निकालती हूँ या जब मैं मेमोरेंडम फाइल करती हूँ, वहां पे इट इज ऑन दी सेल्फ डिक्लेरेशन बेसिस। आई डू नॉट फाइल एनी एडिशनल डॉक्यूमेंट। सो अगेन दिस जो मैं बता रही हूँ, बात कर रहे हैं हम लोग, जो सेक्शन 27 में चेंजेस आए हैं, वो ये था कि अगर कोई गलती से कुछ भी ये हो जाता है, मुझसे गलती हो जाती है डिक्लेरेशन पे, सो इट इज नॉट एज अ क्रिमिनल प्रोसिक्यूशन और राइट। So moves selected non-compliances from criminal prosecutions to graded civil penalties। तो वहां पे उसको क्रिमिनल प्रोसिक्यूशन से हटाकर हमने उसको क्या कर दिया, ग्रेडेड सिविल पेनल्टीज बनाया। So why this bill matters, right? एमएसएमई बिल तो 2006 में आ गया था, फिर अभी ऐसी क्या जरूरत आ पड़ी कि हमको इसमें अमेंडमेंट लाना पड़ा, राइट? तो if I ask, rather if I just put a question, what is the one thing that MSME needs most to survive and grow, right? So you can come up with finance, right? So is it finance? Is it timely payments? Is it access to markets? Or rather, it is just ease, simply ease of doing business, right? So in reality, I would say it is a combination of all of these, right? For any MSME to survive and grow, it needs finance, it needs timely payment, and it also needs access to market, right? And moreover, ease of business to chahiye hame, right? So now, why was there a need to bring this amendments at all, right? What was happening on the ground level? ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है समझने के लिए कि लॉ को इवॉल्व होना पड़ा, क्योंकि अभी तक हमने सिर्फ चैलेंजेस के बारे में बात की कि अरे क्या है, बिकॉज टू वर्किंग क्लोजली आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड द पेन। प्रोविजंस वाज देयर, लेजिस्लेशन वाज देयर, बट हाउ टू अमेंड इट, कहीं ना कहीं वो जो बोलते हैं ना एनफोर्समेंट ऑफ द लॉ, वो मिसिंग था, राइट? फॉर any large organization, I would say, what does a delayed payment mean, right? For sometimes it may be an accounting issue, but what about for a small enterprises, my MSMEs, right? That same delay can become a survival issue. A very sorry state which I have seen, or rather I have presently faced. I was attending the hearing. It was the Samadhan hearing, so it was not on online. It was a physical appearance. And I had seen an old man. I guess he must be in his 75 or, very old, coming with a stick. And he was there to attend the hearing. आई डोंट नो उनका केस कब से चालू था, बट वो अगेन एक पेन पॉइंट है। तो जब हम ये अमेंडमेंट्स के बारे में बात करते हैं, सो आई रियली फील हैप्पी फॉर दोज एमएसएमई सप्लायर्स जिनके लिए ये चैलेंज था। लॉ तो है, बट उसको इन्फोर्स कैसे किया जाए? सो दिस इज व्हाई दिस बिल मैटर्स। The bill moves from MSME support from registration and facilitation to digital registration, right? पहले यहाँ पे क्या था, उद्यम रजिस्ट्रेशन जो था वो अभी भी ऐसे थे कि बहुत सारे लोग जाके हमको फाइल करना है, सेंट्रल और स्टेट के पास जाते थे। So it has now become a facilitation to digital registration. Again, I'm saying it is not anything new because Udyam registration was introduced in the year 2020 only. उसके पहले ही हम digitally आगे थे through उद्योग registration, उद्योग आधार। बट अगेन जो हमारी MSMED ऐप है वहां पे ये साइलेंट था, ठीक है? And again, the most important thing which I was saying will be a relief for all my MSME suppliers is payment discipline and enforceable recovery. क्योंकि अभी तो ट्रेड्स को मैंडेट कर दिया फॉर ऑल दी सीपीएसईज, राइट, एंड इट इज नॉट ओनली मैंडेटरी बट अगेन रिपोर्टिंग इज ऑल्सो मैंडेटरी, राइट, एंड इन्फोर्सेबल रिकवरी। अब आपके पास अगर ऑर्डर है या डिक्री है तो आप उसको लैंड अरियर्स की तरह कर सकते, आप कोई भी कॉम्पिटेंट अथॉरिटी डीसी के पास जाके उसको ये कर सकते, आपको सिविल प्रोसीडिंग्स में वापस जाने की जरूरत नहीं है, right? And again the second amendment in section 18 is आईबीसी के थ्रू अगर आपका एक बार अवार्ड या डिग्री आ जाता है तो आपका जो वो डेट है वो इन्फोर्सेबल डेट हो जाता है। Again, it does not classify it as a financial or a operational debt, but it becomes a enforceable debt. So, जैसे कि मैं बता रही थी या जैसे whatever we were talking about, why this bill matters? This matters because for the liquidity, mandatory TReDS settlement for CPSEs procurement from MSMEs, right? जैसे हमने बोला कि for every central public sector enterprises, it is now mandatory to have a TReDS settlement for procurement from MSME. So it has again, the central has also again given the same route. States also may extend the similar route. It is not only central public sector enterprises, all the central and state public sector enterprises needs to have a mandatory TReDS settlement. आप खुद सोचिए, just be in that picture where a MSME is supplying to a Navratna company, right? ONGC में मैं सप्लाई कर रहा हूं या भारत रेल में सप्लाई कर रहा हूं या MSC DCL में सप्लाई कर रहा हूं और वहां पे मेरा पेमेंट अटका है, and it has been there, mind you my friends, it has been there. There are cases where a MSC is fighting against a big giant for payments. So now if this mandatory TReDS settlement has been introduced via amendment in this bill, it has to be a game changer for all my MSc friends. Now speed, वही जब हम बात कर रहे थे कि स्पीड, भैया आपने काउंसिल बिठा दी, हमने अपना केस फाइल भी कर दिया, राइट, वी हैव फाइल्ड अ केस, द केस इज टेकन इनटू लीगल, बट व्हाट अबाउट द हियरिंग्स, व्हाट अबाउट द अवार्ड, व्हाट अबाउट माय डिक्री? आपने बोला वी आर passing this semi-quasi judicial body, MSCFC Council, at every state district level to speed up the delayed payment cases, right? But again, if there was no fixed timeline where my case is filed in the year 2017, where my case is filed in the year 2019, and now sitting in the current year 2026, I still don't have an order, I still don't have an award or decree in my hand. How is this facilitation council helping me? So now again, the amendment in the bill matters here. Because why? क्योंकि यहाँ पे आपका टाइमलाइंस जो है वो फिक्स कर दिया गया है कि अगर आपकी केस पहली हियरिंग को आज लगी है तो विद इन 90 डेज मेरे को मीडिएशन प्रोसीडिंग्स कंप्लीट करना है, right? And once the mediation fails, I need to take the case within 30 days for arbitration. So this is how the speed will be mattering to us. Enforcement, as I mentioned, order hai, I have my order and decree in hand. I have many orders and decrees still lying in my office drawers. I have those decree in the favor of these MSME friends, right? बट अगेन उसको एनफोर्समेंट के लिए क्या करूं, फिर से कोर्ट के पास जाऊं, राइट? इट वाज द चैलेंज. सो नाउ थ्रू दिस बिल इट हैज enforcement has been taken into picture. How? Now the recovery as arrears of land revenue plus recognition of award or settlement as IBC debt. Now what was compliance? As I was mentioning कि न्यू रिपोर्टिंग, अगर आपने ट्रेड्स के थ्रू मैंडेटरी सेटलमेंट का बनाया तो इट इज ऑल्सो सेड दैट द सेम नीड्स टू बी रिपोर्टेड, and if you are failing to report the same, if you are failing to report the same. What will happen now? It has been into graded penalties with administrative adjudication, राइट. तो पहले तो आपको मैंडेटरी ट्रेड सेटलमेंट करना ही है फॉर ऑल दी सीपीएस सीपीएसईज प्रोक्योरमेंट एंड एट द स्टेट लेवल आल्सो सिमिलर रूट अगेन the same needs to be reported also, and not only reporting in the right manner with right information. If you are failing to do the same, the graded penalties will be applicable to you. Now institutional capacity जो हम बोलते थे, या rather if you go or if you approach any of the MSEFC council at the personal level that my case has been here since 2018 or rather 16, and now it has been 10 years and still don't have an award or degree. So the most famous, or rather I would say the most reply which we used to get was, we are lacking in manpower, और रादर हमारे पास उतना फोर्स नहीं है, आई वुड से ट्रेन्ड फोर्स नहीं है, मैन पावर फोर्स नहीं है. सो अगेन विद दिस अमेंडमेंट इन द बिल इट सेज दैट अगर आपकी एमएससीएफसी काउंसिल एक काउंसिल स्टेट या डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे कम पड़ रही है तो आप और लगाओ, आप और काउंसिल को पिक्चर में लेके आओ, हियरिंग्स को और रेगुलर करो. वो जो टाइम फ्रेम है 30 डेज 90 डेज उसमें हियरिंग्स को आप और रेगुलर करो, आप ऑनलाइन हियरिंग्स को इंट्रोड्यूस कराओ, एंड मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट अपने पूरे जो कॉम्पोजिशन है आपकी उसमें आप एक लीगल मेंबर को जरूर लेकर आओ. सो आई वुड से more or less whatever is proposed in the amendment in the bill, keeping in mind whatever challenges were faced by the MSMEs at the ground level. So structure of the bill, yes. So under when this bill was introduced, MSMED Bill 2006. So again, there is a structural change in the definition and the classification. सेक्शन 2 में जहां पे हमने बात की है जॉइंट कमिश्नर और रादर डेवलपमेंट कमिश्नर, नॉट जॉइंट कमिश्नर, डेवलपमेंट कमिश्नर का डेफिनेशन जो है यहाँ पे इंसर्ट किया गया है, which was missing in the earlier year. So now when I talk about the definition, so say development commissioner ka definition gets inserted. Section 3 makes development commissioner as a designated authority on national board in place of joint secretary level reference. Okay, तो पहले क्या हुआ, पहले तो मैंने सेक्शन 2 में जाके सबसे पहला अमेंडमेंट जो इस बिल के थ्रू किया कि मैंने डेवलपमेंट कमिश्नर को डिफाइन किया कि कौन होगा डेवलपमेंट कमिश्नर. उसके बाद मैंने सेक्शन 3 पे जाके डेवलपमेंट कमिश्नर को डेजिग्नेटेड अथॉरिटी ऑन नेशनल बोर्ड जाके नियुक्त किया, जो पहले के प्रोविजंस में जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी लेवल का रेफरेंस था. राइट नाउ व्हाट डज सेक्शन 7 सेज? सेक्शन 7 क्लासिफिकेशन की बात करता है. तो अगर मैं क्लासिफिकेशन की बात करूं, पहले जो हमारा एमएसएमई डेफिनेशन था इट वाज ओनली, एमएसएमईडी एक्ट के बारे में बात कर रही हूं, कि वहां पे आपका डेफिनेशन सिर्फ इन्वेस्टमेंट इन प्लांट एंड मशीनरी को था. सो व्हाई इट वाज इंपॉर्टेंट, सी दिस एमएसएमईज के लिए बहुत सारे एट द स्टेट एंड सेंट्रल लेवल पे बहुत सारी गवर्नमेंट की इंसेंटिव स्कीम्स है. Right, so to fall in this incentive scheme one had to classify as manufacturer, supplier, और मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंटली उसका क्या क्लासिफिकेशन है, वो माइक्रो है, स्मॉल है या मीडियम है. तो यहाँ पे एट द ब्रॉडर लेवल क्लासिफिकेशन में जाके इंसर्ट किया गया वो कॉम्पोजिट क्राइटेरिया को. अगेन ये अमेंडमेंट के थ्रू जो थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट होती है कि इतना प्लांट एंड मशीनरी में इन्वेस्टमेंट होना चाहिए या इतना टर्नओवर होना चाहिए, दैट इज साइलेंट बिकॉज दैट हैज टू बी मैंडेटेड थ्रू गवर्नमेंट नोटिफिकेशन. द ओनली चेंज हियर इज दैट आपको ये क्या बोलते हैं, इन्वेस्टमेंट इन प्लांट एंड मशीनरी एंड टर्नओवर के बेसिस पे क्लासिफिकेशन दिया गया अंडर सेक्शन 7. अब सेक्शन 8 में क्या हुआ, डिजिटल रजिस्ट्रेशन. अर्लियर द प्रोविजंस अंडर एमएसएमईडी एक्ट वाज ऑन देयर ओन डिस्क्रिशनरी. अगर मैं एमएसएमई हूं, ऑन माय ओन डिस्क्रिशनरी आई कैन फाइल अ मेमोरेंडम. माइक्रो स्मॉल सर्विस प्रोवाइडर या मैन्युफैक्चरर, बट फॉर मीडियम एंटरप्राइज वो मेमोरेंडम को फाइल करना जरूरी था थ्रू सेंट्रल और द स्टेट लेवल मिनिस्टर्स. So now this whole process has been made into the digital registration. ये बिल में लाया गया. So again this digital registration was earlier also, but it was not relied. ठीक है, जो हमारा, because it was on the declaration basis. So my all the I would say under section 18 now it has been mandated through digital registration. Now, what is this payment ecosystem? Section 15A. So, as I was mentioning, this new section 15A has been inserted here, which is making TReDS as a mandatory settlement for all the central public sector enterprises and the state level enterprises. And most important, it does not only mandates through section 15A that TReDS is mandatory for settlement, it has section 22A has also been introduced for the reporting purpose. So all the MSE CPCs needs to report that the MSE's invoices has been cleared through TReDS under section 22A. तो पहले हमने जाके, अगर मैं इसको क्लोजली देखूं तो सबसे पहले तो हमने जाके डेफिनेशन में इंसर्शन किया डेवलपमेंट कमिश्नर को. फिर सेक्शन 3 में हमने डेवलपमेंट कमिश्नर को नेशनल बोर्ड पे लेकर आए हम, राइट. सेक्शन 7 में हमने क्लासिफिकेशन को एक्सप्लिसिट किया दैट इट हैज टू बी ऑन द कॉम्पोजिट क्राइटेरिया ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट एंड टर्नओवर. और सेक्शन 8 में हमने डिजिटल रजिस्ट्रेशन को मैंडेट किया, right. Now this new section which was introduced via section 15A और section 22A, वहां पे हमने क्या किया, section 15A में हमने for every central public sector enterprises and state public sector enterprises को बोला कि अगर आप MSMEs के थ्रू प्रोक्योरमेंट लेते हो तो आपको उनका सेटलमेंट थ्रू TReDS ही करना है. ये हमने मैंडेट किया अंडर सेक्शन 15A में. और सेक्शन 22A में हमने बोला कि अगर आप मैंडेटरी उसको कर रहे हो, राइट, थ्रू TReDS पेमेंट कर रहे हो MSEs को, तो आप उसको रिपोर्ट भी करो. सो मैंडेटरी रिपोर्टिंग वाज आल्सो इंट्रोड्यूस्ड वाया सेक्शन 22A. नाउ डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन. Section 18, which was already in the earlier provisions also, but वहां पे क्या था, Section 18 में आपका time bound नहीं था. So through this, now fixed timelines has been introduced for mediation, arbitration, and again passing of an award or decree. Section 18A subsection 1 और 2 को introduce किया गया, जहां पे enforcement हुआ, enforcement of award through land arrears revenue or through IBC recognition. Section 19, which was there, challenge to an award, right. So when you were challenging an award, 75% had to be deposited. But now this new amendment says ki again, if there is a delay of more than 6 months, then 50% of that award of that money needs to be transferred to the suppliers. Section 20 and 21 was talking about strengthening of MSCFC capacity, as in more and more of introduction of MSCFC council, regular hearings honi chahiye, online proceedings honi chahiye, digital infrastructure hona chahiye. Enforcement and IBC, which I was talking about, section 18A, जिसको सबसेक्शन 1 और सबसेक्शन 2 में इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया. पेनल्टीज एंड रूल्स, सेक्शन 27A, जहां पे आपको सेक्शन 27 वार्निंग दिया गया, ग्रेडेड पेनल्टीज पे लेके आए उसको हम. 27A में डेवलपमेंट कमिश्नर विल बी एडजुकेटिंग दोस पेनल्टीज. So this was the whole structure of the bill. Till now, I think I'm able to pass on whatever I have taken from those amendments. So as I was clarifying, So let's have a discussion as in how these sections were taken. So as I told you, amendment सेक्शन 2 में जैसे लाया गया, डेफिनेशन में डेवलपमेंट कमिश्नर was introduced in the proposed bill, and then earlier definitions was linked to old manufacturing and service. Now it has proposed a simplifies cross references जो section 7 में हमने बात किया, investment and turnover both. Then section 3, national board. Earlier it was officer not below joint secretary was the relevant board authority. Now in the proposed bill, development commissioner becomes the named authority. So what was the key changes? Key changes here in section 2, 3 and 7, I would say that classification is to be notified by central government based on both investment and turnover. As I told you, वो जो threshold वाला जो limit है कि इतना turnover होना चाहिए, इतना investment होना चाहिए, ये again depending on the inflation, depending at the present rate, that authority still lies by the notified by the central government. Again वो जो exclusion वाला part था for calculating the investment, that cost like pollution control, research and development, and industrial safety devices remains excluded. Registration becomes a digital gateway for benefits. That is section 8. As I was telling you, कि पहले section 8 में digital word missing था. हमको तब भी फाइल करना पड़ता था उद्यम on, it was on the discretionary, and moreover the clauses was like any central or the state government authority can do this. So now this digital gateway for benefits. So memorandum filing with central, earlier, this was the earlier position. Earlier position, when I am referring to the word here memorandum, it is nothing, it is your उद्यम registration certificate. इसको पहले उद्योग आधार memorandum बोलते थे और उसके पहले entrepreneur memorandum बोलते थे, IEM. So it was like that. So this filing with specified central or state authority, language based and older enterprises categories. This was the earlier position. So now in the proposed amendment it says that central government to notify a digital platform for free and voluntary MSME registration. Udyam registration right now is also a digital platform, and it is also a free and a voluntary MSME registration. But again, यहाँ पे जो propose किया गया, state level में भी propose किया गया कि that state may also notify platform and provide applicable benefits. So as I was saying you, section 15A and section 22A, most important, जहाँ पे हम वो बोलते थे ना कि MSCs और giant supply buyers की जब बात होती थी, right? तो उनके लिए जो है ये, so it is says TReDS settlement and reporting. जहां पे इस अमेंडमेंट के थ्रू नॉट ओनली सेटलमेंट वायर ट्रेड्स को मैंडेट किया गया, बट अकॉर्डिंगली सेक्शन 22A में उसकी रिपोर्टिंग को भी मैंडेटरी की गई. सो हम लोग एक एग्जांपल के थ्रू इसको समझते हैं. द बिल पुशेस पब्लिक सेक्टर MSME पेमेंट्स इनटू अ मॉनिटर्ड डिजिटल सेटलमेंट चैनल. नाउ हाउ इट वर्क्स. So being a MSME supplier, I am raising an invoice. ठीक है. Now the second party, or rather the opposite party, that is my buyer, is a CPSE, that is Central Public Sector Enterprise. So what it will do, it procures goods or services, whatever a MSME supplier is offering, it procures goods or services. Now what does this TReDS say? RBI authorized TReDS. तो अगर आपने MSME से खरीदा है तो आपको किसके थ्रू सेटलमेंट करनी है? आपको ट्रेड्स के थ्रू सेटलमेंट करनी है, और उसके बाद आपको डिस्क्लोज भी करना है रिपोर्ट्स एंड सेटल्ड इनवॉइस. सो सेक्शन 15A यहाँ पे आ जाता है, जहां पे आपको RBI ऑथराइज्ड ट्रेड्स के थ्रू सेटलमेंट करनी है, और सेक्शन 22A आ जाता है जहां पे आपको डिस्क्लोजर भी करना होता है. So for you, I'll just read it. So section 15A says Central public sector enterprises must route settlement of MSME invoices through TReDS. And government may notify more such entities. Right now it is TReDS, so government may notify more such entities. Rather only ये जो central public sector हम बार बार बोल रहे हैं, ये state level public sectors को भी लागू हो जाता है. और सेक्शन 22A बोलता है नोटिफाइड एंटिटीज मस्ट डिस्क्लोज डिटेल्स ऑफ इनवॉइसेस सेटल्ड थ्रू ट्रेड्स. सेक्शन 18 मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट, पहले भी था ये सेक्शन 18, डिलेड पेमेंट जो एक बोलते हैं ना कि फाइनेंस तो चाहिए. एवरी एमएसएमई का पेन पॉइंट कि गुड्स प्रोड्यूस हो गया, सप्लाई हो गया, मार्केट में चला गया, बट व्हाट अबाउट दोस पेन्स दैट माय पेमेंट इज स्टिल स्टक? What about those pains that after getting my payment stuck also, in order, not to, I would say, hamper my business relation, I'm not able to take this as legally. But again, even if I take this as legal, what happens? वो सामने वाली पार्टी तो चली गई क्योंकि मैंने उनके अगेंस्ट एक्शन ले लिया. एंड सेकेंडली अभी तक वो केस जो है इट इज स्टिल लाइंग विद द काउंसिल. सो व्हाट सेक्शन 18 सेज नाउ विद दिस अमेंडमेंट इन द बिल? Section 18 with the amendment in the bill says a specific timelines के साथ काम करना है हमको. तो specific timelines क्या हो गया कि first appearance is my start point, right? If my case is getting listed, my first appearance will be my start point. So from there, 90 days has been given to the council for mediation. Okay. So within 90 days, I need to conclude on the mediation. So what if my mediation fails? So again, 30 days to the council for arbitration, taking or referring the case to the arbitration. And once the case is referred for arbitration, award needs to be passed within 90 days from pleadings. So this provision now strengthens the timeline also. Within 90 days from the start point, mediation needs to be closed. In case of the failed mediation, 30 days needs to be given for arbitration. And after my pleadings, 90 days for award. So now, what does jurisdiction says about? Council has jurisdiction where supplier's official address as per registration is located. Buyer can be anywhere in India, as we were discussing earlier. If my Udyam registration says that I am a registered supplier in the ambit of Maharashtra, Pune, so my council will be MSCFC Pune. But my buyer can be located anywhere in India, because now what, through this amendment in the bill, we have also talked about the digital infrastructure, online hearings. So the next point is online proceedings. Central government may establish online mediation and arbitration by audio, video, and electronic means. So strengthening the position of my MSE suppliers. Section 18A, जिसके बारे में मैं बोल रही थी, it is a new amendment, or rather a new section introduced. Earlier section 18 तक ही था. Now how this bill gets, rather how my award gets enforcement of an award. So section 18 outcome है mediated settlement or agreement or arbitral award. I have my mediated settlement or mediated memo in my hand, or rather I have my arbitral award in my hand. So section 18 subsection A subsection 1 says recovery, right? So recovery amount may be recovered as arrears of land revenue through collector, deputy commissioner or notified authority. तो स्ट्रेट अवे अभी मुझे उस ऑर्डर को, उस डिक्री को और उस अवार्ड को एग्जीक्यूट करने के लिए सिविल प्रोसीडिंग्स के पास, सिविल कोर्ट के पास नहीं जाना पड़ेगा. व्हाट आई कैन हैव नाउ इन माय हैंड, those amount can be recovered as arrears of land revenue through collector, deputy commissioner, or notified authority. Now, section 18A, subsection 2, again a new thing. It's like IBC recognition. Amount constitutes a valid and legally enforceable debt liable to be recognized under IBC. So again, as I mentioned, once my award or once my arbitral award or once my mediated settlement agreement is in my hand, the amount becomes a valid and legally enforceable debt in the eyes of IBC. So what does this new section 18A is doing? It is strengthening the execution and recovery of a crystallized MSE outcome, right? And what it is not doing, my friends, it is very important to note कि यहाँ पे just IBC recognition में it is not automatically converting my operational debt into financial debt or guarantee full recovery under IBC. IBC का जो mechanism है waterfall mechanism, it will again remain the same. यहाँ पे बस जो मेरी डेट है वो इन्फोर्सेबल डेट को मान्य किया जा रहा है, बट अगेन वो जो मेरा इन्फोर्सेबल डेट है वो ऑपरेशनल है या फाइनेंशियल है या वाटर फ्लो मैकेनिज्म क्या होगा वो डिपेंड करेगा. सेक्शन 19 आई वुड से अगेन गुड. वो बोलते हैं ना कि अभी तक हम मैदान में उतर तो चुके थे लड़ने के लिए, बट हमारे पास वी वर लैकिंग इन द आर्म्स एंड एम्यूनेशंस. तो यहाँ पे अब हमारे पास हथियार भी आ गए. सो व्हाट इज सेज The buyer's challenge remains costly. ये पहले भी था, ये पहले के सिनेरियो में भी था जहां पे बायर अगर चैलेंज करता है अवार्ड या डिक्री को तो 75% उनको डिपॉजिट रखनी पड़ती थी. बट नाउ इट बिकम्स टाइम सेंसिटिव. हाउ? If my case is lying with the pendency of 6 months, right? Court must release at least 50% of the awarded amount from deposit to supplier. पहले तो इन्होंने बोला अगर आप चैलेंज कर रहे हो आपको डिपॉजिट देना है, 75% आपने अपने को डिपॉजिट देना है. बट अगेन फिर भी अगर वो कोर्ट में अभी भी पेंडेंट है, राइट, अगेन इट इज स्टिल लाइंग इन द कोर्ट. So 50% of the awarded amount needs to be from deposit to the supplier. Pass on करना पड़ेगा आपको supplier को. Supplier jurisdiction, application to be filed where supplier's official registered address is located. So if my buyer wants to challenge this award can be challenged only where supplier's official registered address is located. Section 20 and 21. Section 20 says establishment. So earlier state to establish one or more councils, proposed adequate number of councils, regular meetings, infrastructures, digital systems, and trained manpower. And section 21 composition, it says that at least one member from the legal background needs to be in the quorum of the composition. And now, as I was saying, section 27 and section 27A, penalty design shifts from conviction-based fines to warning plus graded penalties. So if any of my MSc friends is failing for the first non-compliance, the first instance will be given them as a warning. Second and subsequent will be the penalty range. And then if the buyers repeated the default, escalating penalty into fine. And then again, it will be taken for adjudication, and for development commissioner will be the adjudicating body. And appeal, it needs to be appealed by the secretary within 30 days and needs to be disposed in the 60 days. And what does this mean? Discriminalization angle. First instance warning and administrative adjudication indicate a compliance-oriented penalty framework. And recovery of penalty, unpaid penalty may be recovered as arrears of land revenue. Again, section 29, 30, and 17. What was these amendments are talking about? Section 29 says central rules. Central government may frame rules for national registration, TReDS settlement, online ADR, invoice disclosure, penalty inquiry, and appeal. So, whatever the amendments were proposed in the bill, Section 29 empowers the central government to frame rules for national registration, right? जो हमने भी ऑनलाइन रजिस्ट्रेशन को मैंडेट दे दिया अंडर सेक्शन 88, ट्रेड्स सेटलमेंट सेक्शन 15A, ऑनलाइन एडीआर, इनवॉइस डिस्क्लोजर, सो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को वो पावर और अथॉरिटी दी गई. Section 30 state rules. State government may frame rules for state registration platforms, state TReDS process. So whatever is falling under the ambit of state, again the state can pass on the rules and make the rules for the same. Clause 17, savings. Existing actions and notifications continue insofar as consistent with the amended act until revoked. So what can be the practical implication here, right? Because जब bill आया या amendment introduce हुई तो इसमें सिर्फ एक पार्टी को देखकर तो नहीं इस amendment को लाया गया. So for MSME suppliers, the important or rather the practical implication here will be register correctly, right? Because it is at the discretionary level, but again penalties are there if you file any improper or rather any information which is not going with you. Keep invoices and delivery proof. Very important for the delayed payment cases. Use TReDS where applicable. Treat MSE award as strong recovery instrument. Yes. For buyers, that is central public sector enterprises, payment system needs TReDS readiness. If you are still not registered under any TReD platform, please register yourself. Section 22, reporting discipline becomes more relevant. Yes. And challenging awards has deposit consequences. And for we advisors, we need, as the MSME registration is at the discretionary and a declaration basis, we should review all client MSME registration, track dispute timelines because timelines has been introduced, evaluate IBC route carefully and watch all the new rules and the notification. So the bill makes the MSME delayed payment framework more enforceable, but legal classification under IBC and actual recovery will still depend on facts, process, and final rules. So what key takeaways, if I have to give, what was this MSME Development Bill 2026 changes all about? So the few key takeaways from my side will be here. The strongest changes concern delayed payment enforcement, right? Fixed timelines, stronger recovery, mandatory 75% pre-deposit and minimum release of 50% after 6 months of a pending challenge. So this is one of the most important takeaways where I am only talking about the changes which is concerning delayed payment enforcement. Second most important is TReDS become a statutory settlement channel for CPCs from MSMEs with scope for extension to other central and state entities. Third is MSCFC capacity and composite strengthened with regular meetings, infrastructure support, and mandatory legal expertise. And the last one is the penalty framework moves substantially from conviction-based fines to warnings, graded penalties, and administrative adjudication. So again, this bill is a proposed amendment. If provisions will become operational only after enactment and the relevant commencement of notifications and rules. So some closing points is Section 18 decides the dispute. New Section 18A strengthens the enforcement. TReDS is the liquidity pillar. MSCFC timeline is the adjudication pillar. IBC recognition means debt recognition, not automatic financial creditor status. And rules, notification, and states procedure will decide implementation's effectiveness. So, with this, I will conclude my thing. If any questions or discussions, open for the same. Ankita, do we have any questions?
We have one question from that one of our user had already sent us. So,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Vinay is asking that what if late payments or non-payments is from private parties? What action can we take, and what exactly is the amendment in the bill for this above concern?
ओके सो एज आई वाज द बिल सेक्शन 15A के थ्रू मुझे समझ में आया ये क्वेश्चन क्यों आया है सेक्शन 15A बार बार ये मैंडेट कर रहा है कि अगर आप सेंट्रल पब्लिक सेक्टर हो या स्टेट लेवल एंटरप्राइजेस हो तो आपको ये करना है मैंडेटरी है कि ट्रेड्स के थ्रू आपको सेटलमेंट करना है but what if the scenario is the opposite party or rather the defaulting party is not from central or the state government enterprises, rather it's a private enterprises. So again, if you see the enforcement thing is most important through amendment. पहले भी केसेस थे जहां पे समाधान और ओडीआर को लाइन में लाया गया था बट नाउ दिस अमेंडमेंट आल्सो टॉक्स अबाउट द टाइमलीनेस कि within 90 days mediation needs to be closed. After mediation fails, within 30 days arbitration needs to be taken, and again within after a period award needs to be passed, which was missing in the earlier MSMED Act provision. Second and the most important thing again, though your supply defaulter party is private party, so again this will be taken into enforcement. If you have that order or award in your hand and arrears revenue जो पहले नहीं था पहले even if I had the order the execution was itself a challenge for me. And third most important is if you have the order in your hand, if the defaulter party is private and still he needs to challenge, he needs to keep 75% of the awarded amount. So these changes I guess strengthens the whole thing, right? It not only supports only or mandates only for the reporting for the public sector or state sector enterprises but also for the private level players. I hope I have answered this question.
Yes. So, I mean, that was the only question that we got. So
Okay.
thank you so much, Ankita, for this insightful session, and thank you for explaining so much in detail. So it was a very, very informative one, and I think a very important one also, given the bill has just passed. So
Yes.
yes, thank you so much to all our attendees also for attending today's webinar. We'll be back soon with another interesting webinar. And till then, you can check out the different offerings that we have on Iris Peridot. We have recently also launched a business health report, which gives you a 25-pager report along with a complimentary expert consultation that gives you a complete 360-degree financial analysis of your business and where exactly it stands. So, yeah, do check it out. And thank you so much for attending. Have a good evening. Bye.
Ankita,
Thank you,
just
Ankita.
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
Ankita,
yeah.
I would just like to add in the same ambit or in the same line, MSME Care also works. So we are always there to provide a supporting hands through our advisory services to all our MSME friends, whether it is related to their delayed payments or the government, subsidies and incentives. So MSME Care is to take care of for all my MSME friends. Thank you.
Right, right. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye,
Thank
Ankita.
you.
Thank you so much. It was,
Yes,
lovely as
thank you.
always.
Pleasure. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.